In a historic town in Georgia, a grisly kind of history is made.
They have a screwdriver, so they begin chipping away at this horse trough, and bang, they hit a pocket, and the stench is unbelievable.
Based on my experience, I really felt like it was a human.
Sometimes you've got to be strong when there's no one left to trust. How can you know your enemies when you can't trust your friends?
They targeted her, and they set her up for this murder.
And will you be strong enough when the target is you? Roads from Diamond Hill, Danielsville, Comer, Crawford, and Athens joined to inspire the name of Five Forks for a tiny town in Georgia. The railroad comes through Five Forks in 1881. The town is chartered in 1899. And in 1909, its name is changed to Colbert for an early settler. Affluent white families run cotton plantations in Colbert before the boll weevil ruins the cotton economy in the late 1920s. Today, with a population of just over 500, Colbert is a quaint agricultural town that votes overwhelmingly Republican and has a very low cost of living.
When we talk about Colbert, Georgia, we're talking about this like very rural area.
It's a quiet, laid-back community, rather rural.
You know, this is good old boy country. This is the South. This is where people take stuff very seriously, like livestock, farming, community, friendship. All of that stuff is taken very seriously. So in many ways it's spread out, but in many ways it's a very small community.
Doug Benton is born on Christmas Day, 1961. He raises exotic birds to sell and is considered a friendly and helpful neighbor.
He was a hard worker, enjoyed lifting weights, and was a pretty average guy.
Doug Benton was a 38-year-old guy living his life, a welder, owned his own business, loved his birds. People described him as a great guy.
Sunday, June 4th, 2000, is a hot and humid day in Georgia. Doug Benton is part of a tight neighborhood. Everyone on the street is on a first-name basis. Doug is in and out that day. There's no mistaking the throaty roar of his motorcycle's exhaust.
Neighbors notice his girlfriend Tracy comes over looking for him. Tracy is a 35-year-old single mother of a teenage daughter who also happens to be the first female deputy in Oglethorpe County, Georgia.
Doug often takes them out for dinner after work, but on this day, June 4th, they don't seem to be able to connect.
2 weeks later, and Doug's friend and neighbor Larry hasn't spotted him since June 4th. He asks around, and when no one else seems to have seen Doug, Larry drops by.
And it begins really on a day when a neighbor of Doug Benton goes over to his house and realizes that Doug's birds, which he was very fond of, are dead. They have no water, and they died. And it's like, well, where's Doug?
Larry calls the police and informs them that something is very wrong at Doug Benton's home.
The neighbor explains to the sheriff that Doug loved his exotic birds and took pride in them.
Doug is 5'9", weighs 250, and is stocky and muscular. He is a power lifter and works out with his girlfriend Tracy regularly.
On June 4th, Larry reports that he hears Doug argue with Tracy, and then he hears the characteristic roar of the exhaust from Doug's motorcycle as he drives away. Later, Larry notices Tracy's truck in Doug's driveway about 3 p.m. Easy to identify. It's a 1998 pickup with tinted windows and a personalized plate. Larry next hears Doug return about 5. Larry knows Doug works welding on construction sites. And it's not out of character for him to be away for a stretch of time, to leave town or even the state.
But the thing is, Doug would never leave the exotic birds, which are worth over $35,000 at risk. But it's not the money. That's not who Doug is. He's a compassionate individual. He'd never hurt his birds.
Larry adds that he's noticed Doug's truck parked outside his friend Jeff's house. Police follow up on the lead about Doug's truck. A note is left taped to the windshield.
The note found on Doug Benton's truck is an interesting piece of evidence.
The note reads, "I'll be out of town for a while. Trust you to look after my truck. Don't try to contact me. I'll contact you later. Doug."
Doug has never left his truck with the keys in the ignition before, and his friend finds the action disturbingly out of character. So much so, he fears that Doug is battling depression and may have committed suicide in a nearby abandoned outbuilding.
Authorities inspect the area, but the search reveals no trace of Doug. The truck, however, may yield more clues.
It's towed to the lot of the police department where they put evidence.
Mystified, authorities continue to look for Doug Benton. They decide to do a wellness check in his home. Law enforcement officers enter Doug Benton's home to check to see if he's okay. But Doug isn't there, and they leave the premises.
So that begins this search for Doug Benton. He's missing.
Authorities call the Oglethorpe County Sheriff Department, where Tracy works, to get her input on Doug's whereabouts.
But a deputy says Tracy no longer works there and offers to get Tracy to call them. She does a short time later.
She gave a general information about when she last talked to him and saw him, and that there had been some type of argument, and she said it was over a movie, but the events and time frame that she had was off from some of the information that we had.
She says she last saw him on June 4th, and then changes that to June 5th, telling investigators about a convicted drug dealer who she says is threatening Benton's life.
One of the other agents worked Madison County, and he mentioned that he had a missing persons case, and it involved Doug. They didn't have a whole lot of information on the case. I was in Oglethorpe County, and the investigator got a call about some suspicious in the middle of a field. The caretaker of the property had been riding a four-wheeler the day before and had a flat tire, and they just left the vehicle. So they came back the next day, and they had noticed something shiny out of the tree line. So they went and looked at it and noticed it had been painted camouflage. It had a real peculiar odor about it. It was ironic because there were potting soil that was on top of the concrete, like to hide the concrete, as if maybe they were going to put flowers in there at some point in time.
First of all, he's worried that people are dumping garbage on the property. So he calls in one of the sheriffs. And with the sheriff that day just happens to be a GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation investigator.
And I rode out to the field with him, and that's where we found the watering trough.
The property owner and the caretaker meet authorities, and together they examine the object.
The horse trough was spray painted around it with different colors to make it appear camouflage so it would kind of blend in to the foliage. They have a screwdriver, so they begin chipping away at this cement horse trough, and bang, they hit a pocket. And the stench is unbelievable. But it's also very telling. It's the smell of death.
"38-year-old Doug Benton is a welder bodybuilder and exotic bird seller who is part of a friendly neighborhood in Colbert, Georgia. When a neighbor discovers Doug's birds are dying from neglect, he calls police. Authorities do a search of his home, but there's no trace of Doug. 2 weeks later, a strange block of cement with a terrible smell emanating from it is found on some remote farmland. The men continue to chip away at the mysterious, reeking block of cement.
It did have a rotting smell, but based on my experience, I really felt like it was a human. He wound up getting the tractor and used the end of the tractor and sort of tipped it over, and it was a great deal of water. And then we wound up like with a chisel and a hammer, sort of like opening up a can from the bottom.
So they get a hammer and they start chipping away, and they come to a foot. There's a dead person inside this cement horse trough.
He was wrapped in a couple of different shower curtains and material. We opened it up, and the investigator that I was with knew him personally, and he observed his face and also a tattoo that was on his arm that he positively identified him as being Doug.
Investigators must remove the almost 1-ton cement block from the premises using a forklift.
What's interesting about this case is they use these forks on a forklift that are kind of like prongs, and they puncture it and they lift it up. They put it on a truck and they bring it to the medical examiner's office.
Once in the crime scene lab, the process of removing the body from the cement block is initiated.
Then the medical examiner begins to chip away at the cement and reveal this body that's wrapped in 2 shower curtains. And they get the body, and it's Doug Benton.
Authorities return to the victim's home for the second time.
So they go over to Doug Benton's house, and they believe that maybe this can be a crime scene.
But something has changed between the 2 visits.
And they smell something weird in the house. They smell like a kerosene smell. It's very pungent. So police had already been in his house once, and now they're back after they find his body. But the first time they go in was kind of strange, because there was no kerosene smell in there, and there was a blower in there, kind of blowing air around. And nothing appeared to be disturbed at the house.
And someone had tried to set some type of flammable liquid in several different spots.
Doug Benton is missing, but his killer knows that he's in a horse trough on a farm. And then bang, news hits that a body's been found. So if I'm the killer, I better run back over to his house, and I better burn that house down now. And burn all the forensic evidence that's left behind. So that's why you see kerosene smell and candles, because Doug Benton's killer thought, I'm gonna go over there, pour kerosene all over the couch, over the carpet, I'm gonna light some candles and I'm gonna leave. And it's gonna just catch on fire, but it never did. The candles burned out. So they start to look around the house, and they look at the couch, and they kind of see the couch is kind of weird. They pull up the cushion on the couch, and there's a big, huge stain underneath there. And they cut the cushion open, and there's more staining in there. They go under the couch, they pull the carpet back, and there's staining there, it's blood. They do a quick test, field test, and it's blood. Now they look at the couch, and they kind of see what looks to be, could be, a bullet wound through the couch.
The scene yields more clues.
The shower curtain had been completely ripped off of all the ringers, and there was like some portions of the shower curtain still hanging. And it was very similar in color to one of the shower curtains that was wrapped around Doug.
They see scuff marks on the ground leading to the door that leads to a deck. And next to the deck, they see a bush and some bushes kind of pushed down, like with tracks of a truck.
Another crime scene person came, and we worked all day and thoroughly examined the house. One of the main things, we did find a .22 caliber rifle.
The rifle is seized and taken for inspection.
They go back to the medical examiner and they're talking about Doug Benton's body, and what do they see on his body? They see one bullet wound in the top of his head. Let's picture the evidence the medical examiner has and the evidence at the crime scene. It appears that Doug Benton was lying down on the couch, maybe sleeping, and somebody shot the guy in the top of the head. Okay, now let's look at what the medical examiner finds. He finds some stab wounds in Doug Benton's belly. There's also some stab wounds in his back. The back stab wounds are post-mortem. So they think those stab wounds happened when they took the forklift and punctured the horse trough to lift it up. They think they might have cut into Doug. But the stab wounds in his belly, those happened when he was alive.
The sheriff's department canvasses the neighbors about any suspicious activity on June 4th. And the search draws out some intriguing responses. A neighbor reports that he hears what could have been a gunshot the day Doug disappears.
Which was on that Sunday afternoon after Doug had come back from riding his motorcycle. The person across the street gave a time frame that was consistent with the evidence that the shot was heard.
In addition to knocking on doors, all of Doug's friends submit to a polygraph test. Police finds them willing to answer questions and anxious to help.
The community is united to find Doug. They also share a lot of the same views.
After a thorough round of questioning, investigators are struck by one thing. All of Doug's friends and neighbors share the same opinion.
There is one single person that everyone is suspicious of in the grisly murder of Doug Benton.
A concrete block hidden on some remote farmland is found to contain the corpse of a missing man, Doug Benton, who is found to have been shot and stabbed. Police return to the victim's home, now believed to be the crime scene, and find someone has attempted to burn it down. Police question Doug Benton's friends and neighbors, and they all appear to share the exact same suspicion.
What keeps coming back to police is that Doug's relationship with his girlfriend Tracy Fortson is extremely volatile. Doug's next-door neighbor hears Tracy and Doug fight often and fight loudly.
Doug meets Tracy in 1997. At that time, she works at a tanning salon right beside Doug's gym.
Tracy is twice divorced. Doug asks for Tracy's number, and they set up a date. But in the end, it's canceled, and neither one feels the push to try again to make it work. But 2 years later, Doug and Tracy run into each other again. She's made great strides in her career.
She wanted to go to the police academy. She was sponsored, and when she got out, that she got a job at Oglethorpe County.
Tracy is now the first female to become a deputy sheriff in the Oglethorpe County Sheriff's Department, so her confidence is soaring. Doug heads straight home and hunts for the number Tracy gave him 2 years earlier, finds it, and calls her right away. This time, the couple's interest is clear, and no one's going to let things fizzle. They start dating. Tracy and Doug appear to be a remarkably good fit. They lift weights and ride motorcycles together.
You know, they like to do what everybody else does. Sit around, watch movies, go out to eat, and go to the gym. You know, that's what they did. They went to the gym.
But the picture is not perfect. According to neighbors, Tracy gets jealous when Doug pays attention to anyone else.
Doug's friends and neighbors say Tracy is frequently waving some really big red flags early on in the relationship.
The relationship was very passive-aggressive. Tracy was very domineering, very controlling. Doug, you do this. Doug, you do that. Doug, you're not gonna do this. Doug, you're not gonna do that.
Things don't go well for Tracy at work at the sheriff's department. She alleges that she's a victim of sexual harassment at work.
The sexual innuendo around her that was being said, you know, the sexually themed jokes, the way she was treated as a woman.
She also believes that she isn't being paid as well as men in her same position.
She really was forced, she says, to quit her job and file kind of a suit against the department. So when she quit her job, she went to work for Doug Benton as kind of his secretary because Doug was a welder. And they just didn't work well together. I mean, they didn't get along, you know? They were together for a while, but they didn't get along, really. They argued a lot.
At some point in time, there was an argument, and somehow Doug found out that she was deleting information about his company.
She went into his work computer and just started deleting invoices so the guy wouldn't get paid.
The work conflicts escalate into dangerous territory.
There was one time where they were working together, and Tracy liked to threaten her own life around Doug a lot. You know, pull out a gun and say, I'm gonna kill myself.
There are other incidents reported with Tracy pulling out a gun as means of intimidation. It's typical that men underreport domestic abuse. They'll experience shame and embarrassment and struggle with the cultural ideals of masculinity. They think this kind of thing shouldn't be happening to a guy, and especially a Doug Benton, who is a big, strong, masculine man, a weightlifter. And Tracy is this tiny woman, just 140 pounds.
Friends and neighbors report hearing Doug and Tracy have a serious argument on June 4th, the last day Doug is alive.
And that day, Doug finally reaches his breaking point and has enough of Tracy's temper.
That's my understanding, that he had told her it was over. He didn't want anything else to do with her.
The murder of Doug Benton appears to be hate-fueled.
So if I'm an investigator and I'm looking at this case, I'm gonna say, well, the person had to be close to Doug. It had to be personal. Because you don't stab someone in the stomach and then shoot him in the head unless it's a personal, aggressive, I'm gonna get you back type of murder.
And the killer knew his routine.
Doug never slept in the bed. He always slept on the couch, on his left side, watching TV. Someone was able to come in his house. They were able to get very close to him without disturbing him. That's where the evidence indicated where the shot was fired from, where all the blood had drained into the couch from that wound.
But police need to find the murder weapon.
One of the main things, we did find a .22 caliber rifle, but it was examined by the crime lab.
Ballistic forensic science is really an interesting science because bullets really leave their own fingerprint inside of a particular weapon.
Doug is killed by a stinger bullet, copper-plated hollow point premium .22 long rifle rimfire used for high velocity and precision hunting.
Stinger ammunition is not a common ammunition, and it's not a match. That .22 had never fired stinger bullets, which leave a very distinct pattern in the chamber of a weapon. Doug Benton was not killed with his own gun. But who else had a .22? Tracy Fortson.
When police start to investigate Tracy as a serious suspect, there's a lot of information there for them to see.
I think Tracy had 2 ex-husbands, and there were talk that where she had either hit or struck or threatened her ex-husbands at some point in time.
Now we have an indication that she can be violent against lovers, which is very important in this.
When she's tied to men by the bonds of love, affection, and attachment, Tracy appears to be capable, or maybe even drawn toward intimate partner abuse.
When investigators break out and they start going to all the hardware stores, the Walmarts, the Home Depots to look for maybe where this horse trough came from, bang, they find a feed store. And that feed store describes Tracy Fortson coming into the store and buying a horse trough and some cement. And we find Tracy Fortson on CCTV buying a shower curtain. Doug Benton's body was found wrapped in a shower curtain. It's not looking too good for Tracy Fortson at this point.
After we searched Doug's house and her house, had the witnesses' statements that she had bought the watering trough and the concrete, we felt like we had probable cause to arrest her for Doug's death.
But here's the interesting thing, and it's kind of a game changer. Tracy does something that you just wouldn't expect her to do.
She went to the sheriff's office and turned herself in.
Tracy is adamant she is not guilty, and amazingly, despite all the incriminating evidence mounting, this case may not be what it appears to be on the surface.
Tracy is reportedly violent in her relationships with her boyfriend, Doug Benton, and men from previous relationships. When Doug Benton's corpse is found encased by camouflaged cement on a remote corner of a rural property, police believe Tracy to be suspect number one.
There's just several things that points her direction, and then the deeper or more we investigated, the more it became real clear that she had something significant to do with his death.
But Tracy Fortson turns herself in, confident that the story she has to tell can topple an investigation that seems weighed against her.
They arrest Tracy Fortson almost immediately.
She wanted a lawyer right away, and she never answered any questions that we had.
But through her lawyer, Tracy has a lot to say.
Tracy Fortson claims she can legitimately explain her purchases.
I own horses, so I bought the horse trough for the horses. Well, Tracy, you bought the horse trough the same time frame that Doug Benton was murdered and found in a horse trough? Yes, I needed a new one. What about the cement? Well, I bought the cement because I was planning on putting in a new porch, and that's why I bought the cement. Well, you bought the cement right around the same time that Doug Benton was found in a horse trough that you bought, buried in cement? Yes.
Are these simply coincidences? Is she a killer, or is something even more sinister at play?
The cement block that encases Doug's corpse is spray painted in a particular way.
And it was also camouflaged in a certain way of putting the leaves and doing the spray paint that was consistent with her mailbox. It was the exact design that was on her mailbox.
There's those same cans of spray paint colors found in Tracy's garage. And what does she say? Well, I was using them to spray paint my mailbox.
Tracy doesn't deny that it's the same paint and the same pattern, because she says her own possessions are being used against her in a frame-up.
Tracy Fortson claims that the cement, horse trough, and paint are stolen from her and used to frame her.
I was framed. I was set up. So they used the cement that I bought and they used the horse trough that I bought to frame me. She says that because she was filing a sexual harassment suit against one of the sheriffs, one of her bosses, that they targeted her and they set her up for this murder.
Doug had supposedly purchased a small cassette recorder for her to keep on her to try to catch the sheriff saying inappropriate things to her. And Supposedly, she had contacted a local attorney to pursue some type of avenue, I assume, to sue the sheriff.
Tracy, with Doug's help, is planning a major case against police. A case that may cause embarrassment to the police and conceivably a huge payoff for Tracy.
Is Doug Benton's murder a plot to halt Doug and Tracy from bringing a major lawsuit forward? In June of 2000, Tracy Fortson faces a grand jury trial for the murder of Doug Benton.
Witnesses came in and described their part. You know, the feed store person came in and said, that woman right there bought the horse trough, bought the cement from me. You know, and then they find the receipts, they match the receipts up against the time. Ballistics come in. They give a whole presentation on all the ballistic and the gun evidence, which is very significant.
The .22 long rifle at Doug's house could not have fired that ammunition, but the gun at Tracy's could have fired the ammunition, but they could not positively say that fired the ammunition that struck Doug.
Tracy Fortson argues that the bullet fragment taken out of Doug Benton was kind of mushroomed and crushed. And I've seen it. She's right about that. She argued that there's no way that you could get ballistics from that bullet.
The note taped to Doug's truck becomes evidence.
It's taped with this specialized tape that's used at crime scenes to fingerprint people. Now, who would have access to that? A sheriff's deputy would. Tracy Fortson would. Would Doug Benton have access to crime scene evidence fingerprint tape? Absolutely not. It just makes zero sense. Look at the handwriting on the note. It's not in Doug's handwriting. That was proven.
But the specialized police tape can also back up Tracy's frame-up theory. Tracy and Doug do appear to exchange heated words that day.
We pretty much agreed that there was some type of argument because inside Doug's house, one of the witnesses told that Tracy had asked him to name all his friends and girls that he had dated at some time.
Historically, women aren't killers. Women are the ones who are more at risk of violence in society. Does Tracy's temper make her a killer? And at last, there's a sheer physical strength one would need to carry out this murder. Tracy is a weightlifter, but she's also just 5 feet 6 inches and 140 pounds.
How could Tracy Fortson move Doug Benton's 250-pound body, packed in a cement block weighing nearly a ton, from his house and hide it in a remote area of farmland?
You know, it's possible that she could have had help. We don't know.
With evidence for the prosecution that looks largely circumstantial, Tracy makes a compelling case for her innocence. Tracy is a trained law enforcement specialist, and yet, if she has committed the crime, she does so with no attempt to cover up her tracks. Doug and Tracy were becoming increasingly troublesome to the police. The lawsuit should not be underestimated.
Is Doug Benton's murder actually a far-reaching conspiracy by police to stop Tracy's workplace harassment case dead in its tracks?
It's peculiar that the evidence is so blatant and the murder so conveniently points to Tracy.
Well, it was a coincidence because I was framed. I was set up.
Tracy Fortson's rage and control issues make her look like the prime suspect in the murder of her bodybuilder boyfriend, Doug Benton. The evidence against her looks incriminating, but can be argued to be circumstantial. Tracy is also a bodybuilder, but to carry off this crime, she would need to move a nearly 1-ton cement block that hides Doug Benton's corpse. Defense argues this is impossible. But the prosecution believes it is more than possible for Tracy to manage this on her own. It is, in fact, probable.
Tracy always argued, how would I possibly get this 220-pound man into a horse trough, onto my truck, and pour cement in it? Well, when you look at the evidence, it's clear how she did it.
Some people didn't want to believe that a female could do this by herself, but when you put down the shower curtains on carpet and roll the body onto the shower curtains, there's no resistance in pulling the weight and pulling it to the edge of the deck.
Doug Benton's body was wrapped in 2 shower curtains. And then we have the killer buying a shower curtain, and then we have a shower curtain missing from Doug's house.
She backed the truck up to the deck and very easily could slide the body into the watering trough.
When they get there the second time, there's a hose, and it's kind of trickling, it's running. The report from the first time the cop went over there when Doug was missing, there was no hose, and it was not running.
And then from there, it was taken to the property that she had hunted and was friends with the owner of the property. And it would have been very easy to tie a lariat to the tree and then tie it to the watering trough and drive the truck off, and it would jerk the watering trough off the back of the truck. And she could have done it very easily by herself. There was a crack in the taillight lens that was consistent with a mark on a tree. The only question that ever came in my mind was if she parked Doug's truck at his friend's house, she could have walked it, but someone probably picked her up and gave her a ride, and we don't know who that was.
Initially, Tracy indicates to police that Doug may have been on the wrong side of drug dealers.
I never specifically talked to anybody that said they had personal knowledge of Doug participating in the buy or anything from the drug dealer.
Other suspects are thoroughly investigated.
So there was a couple of people who had fought with Doug. They interviewed those people. They alibied. There's no way those people could have killed Doug Benton. There was one guy that everybody was hot on in the beginning. This guy probably did it. He loathed Doug. They fought all the time. He owns guns. Well, the guy was like, I don't know, 1,000 miles away when Doug went missing and had been there ever since.
Evidence and motive are both stacked against Tracy Fortson.
Tracy argues, well, look at all the evidence against me. It almost looks like I've been framed. Well, you could argue that. But for me, evidence of her buying a shower curtain, I mean, why would she be buying a shower curtain? She told me because she needed one. Yeah, you needed one to wrap Doug Benton in it. That's why you needed a shower curtain. It's pretty cut and dry as murder trials go, and Tracy Fortson is found guilty.
But the case is overturned due to a technicality.
It was not based on anything to do with any of the witnesses or any of the evidence in the case.
The case is tried again in 2004.
There was, very little difference in the trial.
The July 17th, 2001 conviction is upheld, and Tracy Fortson is sentenced to life in prison, plus 20 years on account of malice murder, 1 count of felony murder, along with 2 counts of aggravated assault, and 1 count of attempted arson.
Tracy Fortson was convicted rather quickly, and she got life in prison without the possibility of parole.
A female killer is unusual, but Tracy's history offers some insights. Tracy witnesses abuse in her family when she is very young, from violence to firearms. Apparently, as a child, she physically fights her own father when he attempts to assault her mother. It sounds like she has zero support from her parents as a child and makes plans to get out of her childhood home as soon as possible. Becoming the first female sheriff of the county is a testament to her strength, but her early exposure to violence as a child may have impacted her. Children who witness violence may tragically go on to manifest emotional problems and show similar violent behaviors.
Tracy Fortson fights her sentence.
Now, Tracy appealed, denied. Appealed again, denied.
Tracy tries again to get her conviction overturned, but her petition is turned down in 2017. She won't give up trying to prove her innocence.
I remember the court reporter who had been doing cases over 40 years, and there was more evidence in that case to convict her than any case he'd ever seen in 40 years.
I will say the GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, did a thorough job and followed the trail of evidence. When you're investigating a case of murder and you have a body, the first ring around that body is all the people that that person knew, closest to that victim. And the closest person was Tracy Fortson. So you begin to follow the evidence. And the evidence led directly to her front door. And when they opened that door, there was more evidence inside.
Douglas Benton is laid to rest in Vesta Baptist Church Cemetery in Lexington, Georgia. Still, some wonder if there is reasonable doubt in this case and whether Tracy Fortson is framed. Doug Benton is murdered less than 4 months after Tracy Fortson quits her job as a deputy sheriff and files a lawsuit against the sheriff's office.
To this day, she says that because she was filing a sexual harassment suit against one of the sheriffs, one of her bosses, that they targeted her and they set her up for this murder and they framed her. Tracy is still trying to find that loophole that she can get in and get this case heard in the Supreme Court. You know, she's hopeful that somebody's going to hear her plea.